Hey guys, welcome to Science Owl Station. Today we begin a slow, quiet descent into a world most of us rarely think about, not because it isn't important, but because it's always been there, patiently waiting beneath our feet. Right now, as you're listening, you're standing, or lying, on top of layers upon layers of hidden space. Soil, stone, water, caverns, entire ecosystems. A vast, shadowed realm that exists without sunlight, without seasons, and without any awareness of our busy surface lives. Imagine peeling the earth back gently, not with force, but with curiosity, lowering yourself inch by inch into its darker, calmer interior. Before we go any further, though, and before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you'd like, let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is for you. Some of you might be drifting off in bed, others commuting late, and a few perhaps listening while the world outside finally goes quiet. Wherever you are, let the world slow down for a while, soften your gaze, let the hum of life around you fade, and gently drift with us into tonight's quiet exploration. The space beneath the Earth's surface is often imagined as dramatic or dangerous. Molten rock, crushing pressure, violent movement. But the truth is far more subtle. Much of the underground world is calm, still, almost meditative. It doesn't rush. It doesn't react quickly. Changes down there take years, centuries, sometimes millions of years to fully unfold. Just beneath the grass, pavement, or floorboards you know so well lies the first layer of this hidden world, soil. It might seem ordinary, but soil is not lifeless dirt. It is a slow-moving ecosystem, teeming with microscopic organisms that live at a rhythm completely unlike ours. Many of them spend long stretches in dormancy, waiting patiently for moisture or nutrients to return. In dry conditions, some microbes can essentially pause their metabolism, lingering in a kind of suspended animation that can last months, even years. Temperature beneath the ground behaves very differently than it does above it. While the air around us can swing wildly from hot to cold in a single day, the soil below changes temperature at a glacial pace. A few feet down, the earth barely notices whether it's summer or winter. This thermal stability is one reason animals burrow, plants root deeply, and humans have long used underground spaces for shelter and storage. The earth, in a quiet way, insulates itself. Sound, too, behaves strangely here. Vibrations from the surface, footsteps, traffic, voices, lose their sharpness as they travel downward. What reaches deeper layers is softened, stretched, almost forgotten. In some underground spaces, the loudest sound is your own breathing, gently echoing back to you. Silence underground isn't empty, it's thick, cushioned, and oddly comforting. As we descend further, soil gives way to denser material. Sand, clay, compacted sediments, each layer tells a slow story of deposition and pressure. These materials didn't arrive all at once. They settled grain by grain, often carried by ancient rivers, long-vanished seas, or winds that no longer blow. Every layer is a chapter, stacked patiently atop the last. Water moves through this world in an entirely different way than it does on the surface. Rain doesn't simply disappear when it sinks into the ground. It seeps. Slowly. Painfully slowly. In some underground aquifers, water travels just a few centimeters per day. That means a drop of rain falling tonight could take decades to move the length of a swimming pool below ground. In deeper systems, water may remain trapped for thousands of years, sealed away since before recorded history. Because of this slowness, underground environments feel timeless. Nothing is in a hurry. Chemical reactions occur, but at rates so slow that they escape human notice. Minerals dissolve, reform, and crystallize over spans longer than civilizations. A single crystal inside a cave may take centuries to grow the width of your fingernail. And yet, it grows steadily, silently, never stopping. Even rocks, which we think of as solid and permanent, are quietly changing. Many types of stone are porous, filled with microscopic spaces that allow water and gases to pass through. Over long periods, these tiny interactions alter the stone from the inside. The rock breathes, in its own geological sense, exchanging elements with its environment so slowly that the process feels almost poetic. Light never reaches most of these places. And yet, life persists. Some organisms underground don't rely on sunlight at all. They survive through chemical reactions, feeding on minerals, gases, or metals in the surrounding rock. Their metabolisms are incredibly slow. Days blur into weeks, weeks into years. Energy is conserved at all costs. Movement is minimal. Survival is patient. This pace, this quiet endurance, is what makes the underground world feel so deeply restful to think about. There are no sudden changes here. No sharp transitions. Just layers upon layers of gradual transformation, happening far beyond the scale of a human lifespan. Even human presence underground tends to soften over time. Abandoned tunnels grow still. Dust settles. Air becomes heavy and unmoving. Footsteps that once echoed fade into memory. The earth gently reclaims the space, wrapping it back into its slow rhythm. As we continue deeper in the sections ahead, we'll encounter stranger forms of life, ancient water locked away in darkness, structures built by human hands and then forgotten, and even the distant, inaudible sounds of the planet itself shifting and stretching far below us. But for now, stay here for a moment, at the threshold, between the noisy surface and the quiet depths. Notice how simply imagining this slow descent begins to calm your thoughts. How your breathing steadies. How the world feels a little heavier, a little quieter. This is the rhythm of the earth beneath us. Unhurried, enduring, and always there. As we move deeper, the idea of sleepy facts begins to settle into its true meaning. This isn't about boredom or dullness or information meant to fade away. It's about a different tempo of knowing, facts that don't demand attention but gently invite it. Facts that unfold slowly, the way the earth itself does. Above ground, we're used to speed. News updates by the minute. Weather changes by the hour. Our minds are trained to react quickly, constantly scanning for what's new or urgent. But beneath the surface, urgency doesn't exist. There are no deadlines underground. No alarms. No schedules. Time stretches out and becomes something softer, something almost irrelevant. Down here, processes don't hurry because they don't need to. A crack in a rock doesn't rush to widen. Water doesn't race through stone. Life doesn't scramble to grow. Everything simply continues. Patiently. Steadily. With no awareness of being observed. This is why the underground world lends itself so naturally to rest. When your mind follows something that moves slowly, your thoughts tend to slow with it. Breathing becomes deeper. Muscles relax. Attention drifts instead of tightening. It's the same reason people find waves, rain, or flickering fire so calming. The underground just operates on an even gentler scale. Consider temperature again, not as a statistic, but as a sensation. Below the surface, temperature changes are so gradual that organisms don't experience shock. There's no sudden cold snap or heat wave. Instead, warmth and coolness glide from one state to another over long periods of time. In deep caves, the temperature often matches the annual average of the surface above, remaining nearly unchanged day after day, year after year. That stability creates an environment where nothing needs to brace itself. There's no rush to adapt. No panic response. Everything is already where it needs to be. Sound behaves the same way. Sharp noises don't survive the journey downward. What remains is vibration without urgency, a low, muted presence that fades as it travels. In deep underground spaces, silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the absence of interruption. A continuous, unbroken quiet that allows the mind to rest without being startled awake. Even movement underground feels different. If you could watch the ground beneath you over time, you wouldn't see dramatic shifts. You'd see imperceptible settling. Grains of sand adjusting their position by fractions of a millimeter. Water finding microscopic pathways through stone. Pressure redistributing itself in ways too subtle to notice in a single lifetime. This slowness is exactly what makes these facts so well suited for the moments before sleep. There's no climax waiting around the corner. No sudden reveal. Just a long, steady unfolding that doesn't ask your brain to stay alert. When scientists study underground environments, they often describe them as stable systems. But stability doesn't mean lifeless. It means balanced. Energy in equals energy out. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. Many underground organisms have adapted to survive on extremely low energy budgets, moving rarely, growing slowly, and conserving every resource they have. Some microbes beneath the earth divide only once every few decades. Others may take hundreds of years to complete a single life cycle. From a human perspective, that almost doesn't feel like living at all. But from the Earth's perspective, it's perfectly normal. And then there's darkness. Not the sudden darkness of a light being switched off, but a darkness that has always been there. A darkness so complete that sight simply isn't useful anymore. In these conditions, organisms don't miss light, they evolve without it. Eyes fade away. Pigmentation disappears. Other senses quietly take over, tuned not for speed, but for efficiency. Thinking about this kind of darkness has a peculiar effect on the mind. Without visual detail to process, imagination softens. Shapes blur. Edges fade. The brain begins to let go of the need to analyze, categorize, or predict. It becomes easier to drift. This is the heart of what buon-gu means in this journey. Not sleepiness born from exhaustion, but from release. Release from urgency. From sharpness. From the feeling that something needs to happen next. As we continue downward, we'll keep encountering this same pattern again and again, systems designed not for speed, but for endurance. not for excitement, but for balance. Not for constant change, but for quiet persistence. So if you feel your thoughts slowing now, that's not an accident. You're already sinking with the pace beneath the Earth's surface. Let that happen. There's nothing you need to hold on to here. Nothing you need to remember perfectly. Just allow the ideas to pass through your mind the way water passes through stone, slowly, gently, and without resistance. In the next part of our journey, we'll begin moving through the upper layers of the ground itself, where soil, sand, and microorganisms create the first true boundary between the surface world and the deep, silent interior waiting below. As the descent continues, it helps to imagine the Earth not as a solid object, but as a layered story, one written slowly, one chapter resting gently atop the next. Each layer beneath us marks a transition, not a sudden drop, but a gradual shift in texture, pressure, and pace. This is not a fall into darkness. It's a quiet lowering, like being eased into warm water. The first layers beneath the surface are deceptively familiar. Soil, roots, grains of sand, things we think we understand because we walk on them every day. But even here, just a short distance below where shoes touch ground, the world already behaves differently. Day and night lose their meaning. The soil doesn't know what time it is. It only knows moisture, temperature, and weight. In this upper zone, everything moves slowly but purposefully. Plant roots extend millimeter by millimeter, feeling their way through darkness in search of water and nutrients. They don't rush. There's no wasted motion. A root may spend days deciding which direction to grow next, guided by subtle chemical signals in the surrounding soil. From the plant's perspective, there's no hurry. Between the grains of soil, microscopic spaces form an entire hidden landscape. Air pockets, thin films of water, tiny channels, all of them home to microorganisms that live their entire lives without ever seeing the surface. Bacteria, fungi, and archaea quietly break down organic material, recycling nutrients in near silence. Their work doesn't announce itself. It simply continues, uninterrupted, year after year. What's remarkable is how insulated this world is. A sudden rainstorm above becomes a gentle seep below. A drought doesn't arrive all at once, it slowly tightens its grip as moisture levels decline. Nothing happens abruptly. Even stress arrives slowly underground, giving life time to adjust. As we move deeper, loose soil gradually compresses into denser layers. Sand settles. Clay tightens. Particles that once shifted freely become locked together by pressure. This transformation doesn't happen quickly. It's the result of countless small forces acting patiently over long periods. Weight accumulates. Space is close. Movement becomes more difficult. And yet, even here, the Earth is not rigid. It yields slowly. Under pressure, materials bend, settle, and adapt. This is one of the most soothing ideas about the underground world: nothing resists forever. Given enough time, everything finds a way to shift without breaking. Water threads its way through these layers with extraordinary patience. Gravity pulls it downward, but the path is never straight. It pauses in tiny cavities, clings to mineral surfaces, and moves sideways as often as it moves down. Some water molecules may spend years trapped between grains before continuing their journey. Others may evaporate back upward, never making it deeper at all. This slow filtration is one reason underground water is often so clear. By the time it reaches deeper levels, it has been strained and refined through countless microscopic obstacles. The Earth cleans its water not with speed, but with time. Temperature, too, grows increasingly steady as we descend. The chaotic swings of the surface fade away. Warmth becomes consistent. Coolness becomes reliable. The deeper you go, the less the Earth is influenced by the sky above. Storms pass unnoticed. Seasons lose their grip. In this quiet zone between surface and depth, the Earth feels protective, like a buffer between the noise of the world above and the silence waiting below. It absorbs energy. It dampens shock. It softens extremes. This is why underground spaces have long been associated with shelter, safety, and rest. Even human-built spaces mimic this instinct. Basements, cellars, underground rooms, we carve them out because they feel different. Quieter. Cooler. More contained. We may not consciously realize it, but we're drawn to the Earth's ability to slow things down. As layers continue to stack beneath us, the sense of distance from the surface grows. Not just physical distance, but psychological distance. Thoughts tied to schedules and screens begin to feel less relevant. The mind starts to wander in broader, slower arcs. It becomes easier to let go of details. This is where the journey truly begins to turn inward. The surface world, with all its brightness and urgency, feels far away now. What lies below doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't demand understanding. It simply exists, unfolding at its own pace. And as we prepare to move even deeper, beyond soil and sediment, into the realm of stone and water locked away in darkness, notice how your breathing has changed. Slower, deeper, more even. The Earth beneath you has been waiting a very long time. There's no rush to reach the next layer. The further we sink into the Earth, the more the idea of sleep begins to feel less like a metaphor and more like a physical reality. Here, beneath the reach of sunlight and weather, the ground settles into a state that can only be described as resting. Not inactive, just deeply, consistently calm. This is the domain of soil and sand at rest. A place where temperature drifts rather than jumps, and where life survives by waiting rather than reacting. In these layers, heat moves slowly, very slowly. A hot day on the surface may warm the top few centimeters of soil, but just a little deeper, the Earth barely notices. By the time you reach a meter or two below ground, daily temperature swings have almost completely vanished. What remains is a gentle average, a steady, unchanging warmth or coolness that wraps around everything like a blanket. Because of this stability, many organisms underground live in a state that feels remarkably close to sleep. Certain microbes reduce their activity to almost nothing when conditions aren't ideal. They don't die. They don't struggle. They simply pause, waiting quietly until moisture returns or nutrients drift back into reach. Some bacteria can remain dormant for astonishing lengths of time. Years, decades, in rare cases, even longer. When water finally arrives, they awaken not with urgency, but with calm efficiency, resuming life as though no time has passed at all. Sand grains, too, behave differently here than we imagine. On the surface, sand shifts constantly under wind and footsteps. Below ground, those same grains settle into stable arrangements. Pressure holds them in place. Movement becomes minimal. If sand does shift underground, it does so almost imperceptibly, a slow settling rather than a slide. This settling creates a faint, persistent quiet. Underground, sound doesn't bounce the way it does in open spaces. Vibrations are absorbed, softened, and spread out. What little noise makes it down here arrives dulled and distant, stripped of its sharp edges. It's one of the reasons deep underground environments feel so profoundly still, even when the world above is busy and loud. Moisture seeps through these layers at a patient pace. A single drop of rain might take weeks to travel just a short distance downward, clinging to grains of sand, pausing in tiny pockets of air, then moving again when gravity gently persuades it forward. There is no rushing, no straight line, only gradual progress. Because movement is so slow, change becomes almost invisible. If you could observe a patch of underground soil for an entire year, it might look exactly the same at the end as it did at the beginning. And yet, beneath that stillness, countless small processes are quietly at work, nutrients shifting, microbes exchanging energy, particles adjusting to pressure. This hidden activity creates a sense of suspended time. The earth down here doesn't feel old or young. It simply feels ongoing, continuous, unconcerned with beginnings or endings. Even roots, when they reach these depths, adapt to the rhythm. They don't push aggressively. They explore carefully, extending only where conditions feel right. Growth becomes a series of small decisions rather than bold moves. Every action is measured, deliberate, and unhurried. It's easy to understand why humans often describe the underground as peaceful. Not because nothing happens, but because nothing happens suddenly. There are no surprises here. No sharp changes to wake you up. Just a long, steady unfolding that mirrors the slow, deep breathing of the planet itself. As we leave this resting zone behind and prepare to enter regions shaped more by stone than soil, carry this feeling with you. The earth has shown us its first lesson: rest doesn't mean stopping. It means moving slowly enough that change feels like stillness. As soil and sand gradually give way to denser layers, the earth begins to feel more solid beneath us. But even here, in the realm of stone, nothing is truly fixed. Rock may seem permanent, unmoving, and unchanging, yet underground, stone lives a quiet, patient life of its own. Many rocks beneath the surface are filled with tiny spaces, microscopic pores, invisible fractures, narrow pathways that allow air, water, and dissolved minerals to move slowly through them. This is why some geologists describe rock as something that can almost breathe. Not in the way living creatures do, but through a steady exchange that never truly stops. Water seeps into these spaces drop by drop, sometimes taking years to travel a distance you could walk in seconds. As it moves, it carries minerals with it: calcium, iron, silica, gently dissolving them from one place and depositing them in another. Over long periods of time, this quiet migration reshapes the stone from the inside. Pressure plays an equally gentle but persistent role. The weight of everything above presses downward, encouraging atoms to rearrange themselves into more stable forms. Crystals grow not with force, but with patience. One molecule settles into place, then another, and another, until a structure begins to emerge. It's a process so slow that centuries may pass without any visible change. Inside caves, this silent growth becomes easier to notice. Stalactites and stalagmites form as mineral-rich water drips and evaporates, leaving behind tiny traces of stone. Each drip adds almost nothing, a film thinner than paper, yet given enough time, these structures grow tall and graceful, shaped entirely by gravity and weighting. Even outside of caves, similar processes occur unseen. Deep within solid rock, minerals crystallize in darkness, forming patterns that no human eye will ever observe. Some of these crystals will remain buried forever, their existence known only through indirect measurements or distant seismic signals. Temperature and pressure deep underground remain remarkably stable, creating ideal conditions for this kind of slow transformation. There are no sudden shocks to disrupt the process. No rapid cooling or heating. Everything happens in a controlled, almost meditative environment. What's especially soothing about this idea is the absence of urgency. Rock does not hurry to become something else. It doesn't resist change either. It simply responds, gradually adjusting to the forces around it. Over immense spans of time, even the hardest stone will bend, flow, or transform, not through violence, but through endurance. From a human perspective, this scale of time feels almost impossible to grasp. We measure our lives in years and decades. Underground, stone measures change in thousands or millions of years. And yet, both timelines coexist beneath our feet, layered quietly together. As you imagine this world of breathing stone and growing crystals, notice how your thoughts begin to slow again. There's nothing dramatic here. No climax. Just steady progress, unfolding far beyond the pace of daily life. In the next part of our descent, we'll follow water more closely as it travels through the earth, slipping into hidden channels, resting in ancient reservoirs, and carrying with it stories that began long before humans ever listened. Water, beneath the Earth's surface, lives a very different kind of life than the water we see above ground. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't rush. It doesn't reflect the sky. Instead, it moves quietly, patiently, following paths shaped not by speed, but by opportunity. When rain falls, only a small part of it becomes rivers or streams. Much of it begins a slower journey downward. It slips past roots, pauses in soil, and eventually reaches layers where movement becomes a matter of millimeters rather than meters. Gravity still pulls, but resistance is everywhere. Stone presses in. Pores narrow. Pathways twist. In these underground spaces, water often travels just a few centimeters per day. Sometimes less. That means a drop of rain falling tonight might still be underground decades from now, moving so slowly that it never forms anything resembling a current. There is no sense of direction, only gradual migration. Along the way, water gathers stories. It dissolves minerals from the rocks it touches, picking up traces of calcium, magnesium, iron, and salt. These dissolved elements quietly change the water's character, giving it a taste, a density, a weight. Underground water is shaped by everything it passes through. Eventually, some of this water collects in hidden reservoirs known as aquifers. These are not open underground lakes, but networks of tiny connected spaces within rock and sediment. Water fills them slowly, evenly, pressing gently against stone from all sides. In many places, aquifers contain water that has been isolated from the surface for thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of years. This ancient water doesn't feel old in any dramatic way. It's cool, still, undisturbed. If brought to the surface, it might seem perfectly ordinary. And yet, it began its journey long before cities existed, before written language, before humans settled into familiar patterns of life. Sound in these places is almost non-existent. Water doesn't splash or roar. It seeps. It rests. Occasionally, in caves or fractures, it forms a slow drip, a steady, gentle rhythm that can continue unchanged for centuries. One drop. A pause. Another drop. Like a clock designed not to measure hours, but patience. In deep underground environments, water also plays the role of a quiet caretaker. It moderates temperature. It cushions pressure. It allows chemical reactions to proceed slowly and evenly. Life that exists here often depends on water not as a source of motion, but as a stable presence, something reliable and unchanging. Because movement is so slow, underground water systems are remarkably calm. There are no waves, no turbulence, just a constant, barely perceptible adjustment as molecules shift and settle into new positions. It's water that has learned how to wait. Thinking about this kind of movement has a subtle effect on the mind. When nothing rushes, there's nothing to anticipate. When progress is measured in centimeters per day, the idea of next loses its urgency. The mind begins to loosen its grip on time. As we continue downward, water will remain with us, not as a dramatic force, but as a quiet companion. Carrying minerals, softening stone, holding memories of climates and landscapes long gone. And somewhere beneath all of this slow motion and silence, water continues its journey, not toward an end, but simply onward, one patient moment at a time. As water drifts onward through the earth, it eventually reaches places where movement nearly stops altogether. Spaces where pressure, darkness, and time combine to create something rare, environments where minerals are given the chance to grow undisturbed. This is where the underground world quietly begins to make what humans often call treasures. But down here, nothing is in a hurry to become valuable. Deep beneath the surface, far from light and weather, mineral-rich fluids move through fractures in rock. These fluids carry dissolved elements gathered slowly over long journeys, traces of carbon, iron, chromium, silica, and countless others. When conditions are just right, when temperature and pressure settle into a stable balance, those elements begin to arrange themselves into orderly structures. Crystals are born not with force, but with patience. A single molecule finds a place to rest. Then another still. Each addition happens so gently that it leaves no disturbance behind. Days pass without visible change. Years do the same. Even centuries may leave a crystal looking exactly as it did before. And yet, growth continues, quietly stacking order upon order in the dark. Some crystals grow no faster than the thickness of a human hair over an entire lifetime. Others take thousands of years to reach a size large enough to be noticed at all. Underground, size is never a priority. Stability is. What makes these environments feel especially calm is their consistency. Once a mineral pocket forms, it can remain unchanged for immense spans of time. Temperature holds steady. Pressure remains balanced. Chemical conditions barely shift. It's an ideal setting for slow creation, a kind of geological nursery where nothing is rushed and nothing is wasted. Many gemstones form this way. Not as objects meant to be seen or worn, but simply as natural outcomes of patience and pressure. Some will eventually be brought to the surface through mining or tectonic movement. Others will never be discovered. They will remain sealed in darkness, complete and perfect without ever being observed. There's something deeply soothing about that thought, that beauty doesn't require an audience. That the earth continues creating intricate structures even when no one is watching. Even metals form quietly underground. Veins of ore develop as mineral-rich fluids cool and settle, leaving behind thin traces that may take millions of years to become significant. To the earth, this is not accumulation. It's balance, materials finding places where they are most stable. Around these mineral pockets, everything remains still. There are no sudden shifts, no dramatic reactions. Just the slow hum of geological time moving forward at a pace that barely registers. When humans do encounter these underground treasures, it often feels sudden, a discovery, a strike, a moment of excitement. But from the Earth's perspective, nothing sudden has occurred. The process was already complete long before anyone noticed. As you imagine these crystals growing in silence, locked away beneath layers of stone, notice how different this is from the surface world. No competition, no urgency, no demand for progress. Just steady formation, happening because conditions allow it. This is the rhythm of the underground, a place where even the most precious materials are content to wait. In the sections ahead, we'll begin to encounter life that has adapted to this same rhythm. Organisms that thrive not through speed or strength, but through conservation, patience, and a deep familiarity with darkness. As we move beyond stone and minerals, the underground world reveals something even quieter, life that exists without ever knowing the sun. This is a realm where light is unnecessary, where the idea of day and night has no meaning at all. And yet, life persists, calmly and efficiently, in ways that feel almost dreamlike. In these deep spaces, many organisms survive without photosynthesis. They don't rely on sunlight to produce energy. Instead, they draw power from chemistry itself, breaking down minerals, gases, and metals found in the surrounding rock. This process happens slowly, with no bursts of activity, no rapid growth. Energy is gathered gently, just enough to continue. These organisms often live on the edge of existence, using the smallest possible amount of fuel. Their metabolisms run at a whisper. Reactions that might take seconds in surface organisms unfold over days or weeks here. Some microbes consume energy so slowly that scientists struggle to measure whether they are active at all. And yet, they are alive. Because resources are scarce, nothing is wasted. Movement is minimal. Growth is rare. Many of these organisms divide only once every few years, sometimes even less often. There is no advantage to speed. Survival belongs to those who can wait. Darkness in these environments isn't dramatic or frightening. It's complete, uniform, and unchanging. Without light, there are no shadows, no shapes to interpret. Vision becomes unnecessary. Over time, organisms simply stop developing eyes. Pigment fades. Color loses its purpose. Instead, other senses take over: chemical detection, subtle changes in pressure, faint vibrations in the surrounding rock. These senses don't rush information to the brain. They provide just enough awareness to maintain balance with the environment. What's remarkable is how stable these systems can be. Once established, underground ecosystems may remain unchanged for thousands of years. There are no seasons to disrupt them, no storms to force adaptation. Life continues at the same gentle pace, generation after generation, almost untouched by the surface world. From a human perspective, this kind of existence feels incredibly quiet, almost asleep. But it's not inactivity. It's harmony, life perfectly matched to a place where nothing happens quickly. Thinking about these organisms often softens the mind. They don't compete. They don't expand endlessly. They simply exist within their limits, conserving energy and avoiding disruption. It's a reminder that life doesn't always need momentum to endure. As we prepare to explore even stranger inhabitants of the underground, creatures that have reshaped their bodies to suit eternal darkness, let this idea linger. Life can be slow. Life can be still. And sometimes, that's exactly what allows it to last. Deeper still, where darkness has reigned for countless generations, life begins to take on forms that feel almost unreal, not because they are dramatic, but because they are so perfectly adapted to stillness. These are creatures shaped by patience, by scarcity, and by an environment that never asks them to hurry. In underground caves and tunnels, many animals live their entire lives without ever encountering light. Over time, eyes become unnecessary. Vision fades away, not as a loss, but as a quiet decision by evolution to conserve energy. Without eyes to maintain, without pigment to produce, the body simplifies itself. What remains is only what is essential. Some cave-dwelling insects are translucent, their internal structures faintly visible through pale bodies. Others are completely colorless, blending seamlessly into the stone around them. Movement is slow and deliberate. There's no need to rush when food is scarce and energy must be carefully guarded. In these environments, sleep is not clearly defined. Many underground creatures exist in a near-constant state of rest, punctuated by brief moments of activity. Their heart rates are low. Their metabolisms run quietly. Even when they move, it is with economy, no sudden bursts, no wasted motion. Certain worms and invertebrates found deep underground can live for astonishingly long periods with very little nourishment. They feed infrequently, sometimes going weeks or months between meals. Their bodies are built not for speed or strength, but for endurance. Life stretches out, unhurried, almost suspended. There are also creatures that seem frozen in time. Species that have changed very little over millions of years because their environment never forced them to. When nothing changes, adaptation slows. Evolution itself becomes patient. In the absence of sound and light, touch becomes important. Gentle contact with rock walls. Subtle vibrations traveling through stone. Chemical traces left behind by other organisms. Information arrives slowly, softly, without urgency. What's striking about these animals is how calm their existence appears. There is no chasing, no fleeing, no frantic searching. The underground world doesn't reward those behaviors. Instead, it favors stillness, awareness, and conservation. For humans, imagining this kind of life can feel deeply relaxing. A world where nothing demands attention. Where survival doesn't depend on constant alertness. Where rest is not a break from life, but the default state. As we move onward, the focus will shift from living creatures to remnants of life long gone, forms that no longer breathe, but continue to rest quietly beneath layers of stone, holding memories of worlds that once were. Eventually, life slows so completely that it seems to stop, and yet, even here, nothing truly ends. Beneath layers of stone and sediment lie the quiet remnants of worlds that once moved, grew, and breathed. This is the realm of fossils, where time doesn't erase life, but gently preserves it. When plants and animals are buried beneath the earth, the process that follows is not sudden. It's slow, careful, and remarkably patient. Soft tissues fade away first, dissolving quietly back into the surrounding soil. What remains, bone, shell, wood, becomes wrapped in pressure and mineral-rich water. Over long periods, those original materials are slowly replaced, molecule by molecule, with stone. This transformation doesn't feel violent or dramatic. There is no moment when life suddenly becomes rock. Instead, it's a gradual exchange, so gentle that the original structure remains intact. Tiny spaces left behind by cells fill with minerals. Over time, the boundary between biology and geology quietly disappears. Some fossils take millions of years to fully form. During that time, the Earth holds them in darkness, insulated from weather, light, and movement. They rest undisturbed while continents drift above them and climates change on the surface. Entire ecosystems come and go without ever touching what lies buried below. What's especially calming about fossils is their stillness. They are no longer part of cycles that demand energy or attention. They don't react. They don't adapt. They simply remain, perfectly content to exist as memories locked in stone. In deep underground layers, fossils can be found in astonishing detail. Leaves with visible veins, shells with delicate ridges, even footprints preserved as impressions in ancient mud. These are moments frozen not in ice, but in patience. Time behaves differently around fossils. Millions of years compress into silence. The noise of history fades away, leaving behind only form and texture. There is no urgency to be discovered. No need to be understood. Many fossils will never be seen by human eyes at all, and yet their existence is no less complete. Thinking about this kind of preservation has a grounding effect on the mind. It reminds us that rest doesn't mean disappearance. That stillness can be a form of continuation. That even after motion ends, presence can remain. As we prepare to leave the realm of ancient life behind and turn toward spaces shaped by human hands beneath the earth, let this image linger, a world resting quietly, holding its stories without ever needing to tell them. When humans first began carving spaces beneath the earth, they didn't do it for drama or mystery. They did it for the same reasons the planet itself favors: depth, quiet, stability, and protection. Over time, those practical choices gave rise to places that now feel strangely dreamlike: underground cities, tunnels, and chambers that have slowly drifted into stillness. Many of these spaces were once busy. Voices echoed through stone corridors. Footsteps followed familiar paths. Lamps flickered softly against rough walls. But when people leave, the underground doesn't rush to fill the absence. It waits, patiently. And as it waits, everything begins to settle. Air becomes heavy and unmoving. Dust drifts downward and stays where it lands. Sounds disappear almost entirely, absorbed by layers of rock that were always meant to quiet the world above. What remains is not emptiness, but a deep, uninterrupted calm. Some underground cities were built to escape heat, others to avoid danger, and some simply to make use of the Earth's natural insulation. Over generations, they expanded slowly, room by room, tunnel by tunnel, until entire communities lived beneath the surface. When those communities moved on, the spaces they left behind slipped gently into a long sleep. Down here, decay happens differently. Wood dries and hardens instead of rotting quickly. Metal rusts at a measured pace, forming soft, textured surfaces rather than sharp corrosion. Fabrics fade, but they don't vanish overnight. Without sunlight, change becomes subtle and gradual. What's striking about these abandoned underground places is how little they ask of you. There are no advertisements, no screens, no sudden noises. Even your own presence feels muted, as if the earth is encouraging you to lower your voice, slow your steps, and move with care. Some tunnels stretch for miles, yet feel intimate and enclosed. Others open into chambers where the ceiling disappears into shadow, making the space feel larger than it really is. In both cases, the effect is the same: time loosens its grip. Minutes feel longer. Thoughts wander. Dust becomes the dominant storyteller here. It settles slowly on every surface, recording stillness rather than movement. A footprint left today may remain visible for years. Not because it is important, but because nothing comes along to disturb it. In these spaces, the boundary between human creation and natural environment begins to blur. Stone walls grow damp. Minerals creep across carved surfaces. Water traces new paths through cracks and corners. The earth gently reclaims what was borrowed, not with force, but with quiet persistence. Standing in an underground city that has been left behind feels less like discovering something lost and more like interrupting something resting. The space doesn't feel abandoned. It feels paused. As we move forward, we'll enter places beneath the earth that were created not for living, but for remembrance, spaces designed specifically for rest, silence, and the long passage of time. Deeper beneath the surface, human spaces grow quieter still. These are places not meant for movement or conversation, but for rest, for stillness that stretches far beyond a single lifetime. Underground burial chambers, catacombs, and tombs were shaped with intention, designed to mirror the calm permanence of the earth itself. Across cultures and centuries, people have chosen the underground for remembrance. Not because it is dark, but because it is stable. Beneath layers of stone and soil, the world changes more slowly. Temperatures remain even. Air moves gently, if at all. Time seems to soften its edges. In these spaces, silence feels different. It isn't empty or unsettling. It's thick, protective, almost respectful. Sound fades quickly here, absorbed by walls that were never meant to echo loudly. Even footsteps seem hesitant, as if aware they are passing through a place devoted to rest. Many underground burial chambers were designed to be visited rarely. Long corridors lead to small rooms. Ceilings are low. Light is limited. Everything encourages a slower pace, both in body and in thought. The architecture itself seems to ask for quiet. What's striking is how carefully these spaces were planned. Stone was chosen for durability. Layouts favored symmetry and balance. Decorations were often subtle, carvings worn smooth over time, inscriptions softened by centuries of still air. Nothing here was meant to distract. Everything was meant to endure. Over long periods, the Earth gently takes over the role of caretaker. Moisture settles. Minerals slowly trace patterns along walls. Dust forms an even layer, uninterrupted. Unlike surface monuments, which face constant exposure and decay, underground memorials change at a measured, almost imperceptible pace. This slow preservation creates a sense of timelessness. A chamber sealed hundreds or thousands of years ago can feel surprisingly present when opened. Not new, but undisturbed. As if time simply paused and waited. There is something deeply calming about that idea. That rest can be intentional. That stillness can be designed. That humans, long ago, recognized the underground as a place where noise fades and presence remains. In these spaces, memory doesn't announce itself. It lingers quietly, held by stone and soil. Nothing demands attention. Nothing asks to be interpreted quickly. The underground does what it has always done. It holds, it cushions, and it waits. As we prepare to move onward, away from spaces of remembrance and toward places of quiet preservation and storage, let the feeling of this stillness stay with you. The earth beneath us has always known how to keep things safe by slowing everything down. Not all underground spaces were created for memory or mourning. Some were built for patience, for waiting, for letting time do its work without interruption. Deep cellars, storage chambers, and tunnels carved into stone were designed not for people, but for processes that unfold best when left alone. Underground storage has always been about trust in the Earth's ability to remain steady. Beneath the surface, temperature rarely swings. Humidity settles into predictable patterns. Light stays absent. These conditions are ideal for preservation, not through freezing or force, but through balance. In ancient grain stores carved into rock, seeds could rest for months or even years without spoiling. Protected from heat, pests, and sudden weather changes, they remain dormant, quietly holding the potential for future growth. Nothing needed to be monitored constantly. The earth took care of it. Wine cellars operate on the same principle. Bottles rest horizontally in cool darkness, undisturbed by vibration or light. Chemical reactions inside the liquid proceed slowly and evenly, allowing flavors to deepen over time. There is no rush to maturity here. Aging becomes a form of rest. Cheese caves, root cellars, and underground larders all share this same philosophy. Food is not forced to last longer, it is simply given an environment where change happens gently. Mold grows where it should. Fermentation progresses at its own pace. Preservation becomes a collaboration between human intention and geological calm. What makes these spaces feel especially soothing is how little intervention they require. Once established, they are left alone. Doors close. Lights go out. Time passes. The underground does what it does best. It holds things in a state of quiet continuity. Sound barely exists in these places. Even when someone enters, footsteps feel subdued, swallowed by stone. Air moves slowly, carrying faint, earthy scents that change only subtly with the seasons. There are no alarms, no reminders, just the steady presence of stored time. It's easy to forget how much of human culture has depended on this kind of waiting. Before modern refrigeration, before constant monitoring, people relied on the Earth's natural ability to slow decay, to soften extremes, to keep things steady. Thinking about this can feel unexpectedly calming. Food resting underground isn't being watched. It isn't being rushed toward consumption. It's simply allowed to become what it will become in its own time. As we prepare to leave these spaces of quiet preservation and move toward the deeper, more mysterious sounds of the earth itself, notice how this theme keeps repeating. Underground, the best things happen when nothing interferes. When patience replaces control. When time is given room to breathe. Far beneath the layers of soil, stone, water, and human-made spaces, the earth is never truly silent. It hums softly, constantly, with sounds too slow, too low, or too distant for human ears to notice. This is the quiet music of a living planet, unfolding at a frequency that encourages listening rather than reacting. Deep underground, the earth stretches and settles. Tectonic plates press gently against one another, not always with dramatic earthquakes, but with subtle adjustments that happen every day. These movements release vibrations so faint they pass unnoticed, traveling through rock like a distant breath. Some of these sounds are so low in frequency that humans can't hear them at all. They exist below the threshold of perception, detected only by sensitive instruments placed deep in the ground. Scientists call them microseisms, tiny tremors caused by shifting plates, distant storms, or even ocean waves thousands of kilometers away. Imagine that for a moment. Waves breaking on a faraway shore, sending ripples of energy through the planet, gently reaching the deep underground long after the sound of surf has faded from the air. The earth carries echoes not as noise, but as motion. In certain places, the ground produces a steady, low vibration known as earth hum. It has no clear beginning or end, no rhythm meant to be followed. It's simply there, a continuous background presence, like the planet quietly reminding itself that it exists. These sounds don't signal danger. They don't demand attention. They are part of the Earth's natural equilibrium, a byproduct of constant but gentle movement. The planet is not restless. It is adjusting, slowly, carefully, endlessly. Caves and deep tunnels can sometimes amplify these sensations. A faint vibration felt through the soles of the feet. A low resonance that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It's not something you hear with your ears, but something you sense with your body. What makes these underground sounds especially calming is their predictability. They don't surprise. They don't spike. They rise and fall gradually, like a long, slow exhale. Even seismic waves that travel vast distances arrive softened by layers of stone, stripped of urgency. Thinking about the earth in this way, not as a silent object, but as a quietly resonating system, has a grounding effect. It reminds us that motion doesn't always mean disruption. That sound doesn't always mean alarm. Sometimes, it simply means presence. As we move toward the deepest part of our journey, toward the very heart of the planet, let these inaudible sounds fade into the background of your awareness. The earth is speaking, but it's speaking softly. And soon, we'll listen to the slow, steady activity of the place where all of this motion begins, the quiet, enduring core at the center of everything beneath us. At the deepest point of our journey, far beyond soil, stone, water, and even the oldest human structures, lies a place no one has ever visited, and yet, one that has quietly shaped life on the surface for billions of years. The core of the earth is not a place of rest in the human sense, but it is a place of astonishing steadiness. Here, pressure is immense. Temperatures are extreme. And yet, nothing is chaotic. At the planet's center, molten iron and nickel move in slow, deliberate currents. Not rushing. Not colliding violently. Just circulating, guided by physics that operate with perfect consistency. These movements generate Earth's magnetic field, a protective presence that quietly shields the surface from harmful solar radiation, day after day, without pause. From above, this process might sound dramatic. But from within the Earth, it is simply routine. The core doesn't surge or spike. It doesn't accelerate suddenly. Its motion is measured, continuous, and deeply stable. In many ways, it is the most reliable part of the entire planet. What's remarkable is how distant this activity feels from our daily lives. As we sleep, as we breathe, as we drift into dreams, the Earth's core continues its slow circulation, maintaining balance without ever calling attention to itself. There are no signals sent upward. No reminders. Just quiet persistence. Seismic waves that pass through the core emerge changed, softened, redirected, filtered by layers of extreme density. Even the planet's most powerful vibrations are calmed as they travel through this region. Energy becomes ordered. Movement becomes smooth. In this way, the core acts not as a source of disruption, but as a stabilizer. A steady heart that keeps the planet's systems aligned. Without it, compasses would fall silent. The sky would behave differently. Life at the surface would feel far less protected. Thinking about this can feel strangely comforting. At the center of everything familiar is something constant. Something dependable. A reminder that even in a planet defined by change, there is a place where rhythm never falters. The Earth, it turns out, doesn't sleep in the way we do. But it rests in motion. Its deepest systems work quietly, without urgency, without variation, maintaining the conditions that allow life, movement, and rest to exist above. As we reach the end of this descent, imagine the distance we've traveled. From the soft soil beneath your feet to the glowing, steady heart of the planet. Every layer in between moving at its own pace, each one slower than the last. And now, having reached the deepest point, there is nowhere else to go. Nothing more to seek. Only the sense of being held, by weight, by time, by a planet that has been quietly doing its work long before we arrived. Now that our journey has reached its deepest point, there's no need to imagine moving any further. No more layers to pass through. No more descent. Everything below you is steady, settled, and quietly doing what it has always done. If you think back to where we started, the surface world filled with light, sound, and constant motion, it already feels distant. Almost unreal. Down here, nothing competes for attention. Nothing asks to be solved. The Earth simply holds its shape and keeps its rhythm, slow and unbroken. Imagine the weight of the planet around you, not as pressure, but as reassurance. Layer upon layer resting together, each one supporting the next. Soil resting on stone. Stone resting on deeper stone. Water tucked into hidden spaces. Life moving gently where it can, and resting where it must. The underground doesn't rush toward the future or cling to the past. It exists in a long, continuous present. A present where seconds don't matter. Where minutes dissolve. Where time feels wide and forgiving. If your thoughts are still drifting, let them drift. There's no need to hold on to images or facts. You don't have to remember everything you heard. The Earth doesn't remember its layers in detail either, it simply carries them. Notice your breathing now, how it moves on its own, without effort. In and out, steady and unforced. Like the slow circulation deep within the planet, working quietly whether anyone notices or not. Any tension you carried into this journey can settle here. There's plenty of room for it to sink downward, to be absorbed by the weight and stillness beneath you. Nothing needs to be resolved tonight. Nothing needs to be decided. Above you, the surface world continues as it always does. But for now, you're not required there. You can stay here a little longer, in this imagined quiet, wrapped in layers of calm that have existed for billions of years. The Earth will keep breathing in its own way. Water will keep seeping. Stone will keep adjusting. The core will keep its steady motion. And you can rest, knowing that everything important is being held. Wherever you are, let your thoughts soften. Let your body grow heavy. Let the day fade without resistance. The world can wait.